What's up, ladies and gentlemen, YouTube? Stando TV here with you as always. We're doing another episode of the Film Gurus with me, Hirschy 1103. What's up, Hirschy? How are you?
What's up? How's it going?
Pretty good, man. Last week we did Django. This week we're moving on to RoboCop. We haven't decided what we're going to do next week, but that's okay. Let's talk RoboCop, man. Hirschy, I have a confession. I liked RoboCop. I thought I was going to crap all over this movie before going into it, and it turns out that I found the film fun. You, on the other hand, you don't necessarily agree with me.
It's a little lackluster for me. I just felt like it could have been a little bit better, and the pacing was quite slow compared to what I had expected from it. I expected an action film, and I got kind of more of a drama.
Okay.
So, yeah, but I mean, overall, it was okay. It wasn't the worst film I've ever seen. I just felt like with the legacy that they had, they could have held up a little bit more.
All right. Well, let's take us into the actual plot of the film and break this down scene by scene. The film opens up. We see Samuel L. Jackson. He's doing these mouth exercises, and then he goes live. And his character is Pat Novak, which is the host of this Novak Element, which is like a kind of like a dystopian Republican type network television show that pretty much advocates what's going on in other countries and policing around our states and things like that. And then we go from that scene at the network to live footage of what's going on abroad, and we see these robots that are like policing a Middle Eastern street, and these suicide bombers are getting ready to run at these robots that are policing the street, which are being controlled by Rick Maddox, who is the controller and automated military tactician expert, played by Jackie Earle Haley. So they don't succeed in taking down the robots, even though they are dying pretty much on live television. And then we see one of the sons of the suicidal bombers come out to help attack these drones and to protect his father, pretty much. And the boy is, mistakenly kind of gunned down. It leaves it up for debate whether he's gunned down or whether he was an actual threat, because the boy was only holding a knife. Probably died needlessly. And that's the opening scene. And then we cut back to Samuel L. Jackson, who says, you know what, we'll just come back to that later. He doesn't even want to address that the boy, this kid died on television. He doesn't want to address it or anything. It's kind of closed-minded. What was your thoughts on this scene, Hirsch?
As far as Novak, I thought at least this beginning scene was pretty well done. Samuel L. Jackson played it pretty well. Kind of gave that dystopian future sense to the character. And then when it came to the action scene, the action was done pretty well. I did kind of like the idea of having the boy run out in front of the mechanized soldiers and having them only kind of notice the fact that the knife's in his hand and not notice, like kind of give the idea of what the entire movie was going to be about from that point on. So that was pretty interesting. Right,
exactly. From that, we cut to we find out later that Michael Keaton, who plays Raymond Sellers, is the CEO of OmniCorp, and he's wanting to bring these robots here to the States to police our streets. That way we don't have to waste the lives needlessly of several men and women in our police force. But this is being objectified by the Dreyfus Act. Dreyfus is like a senator who is in complete opposition of bringing, they can't think like an officer does. They might be fine for the military, but for what we're doing at home, we need more precise judgment in dealing with these day-to-day cases. What did you think of that setup in particular, Hirsch?
I liked it. I mean, I like Michael Keaton as in the role that he played. He is pretty good as most of the underhanded bad guys whenever he plays like a role like that, and he's a pretty good actor. I feel like a lot of the projection that they had with the way the character was going was a little too open. They could have been more like, it could have been more underscored, and made him seem like more of a nicer guy in the beginning, instead of making it so obvious that he was going to turn,
More advocate, so to speak.
Yeah, more of an advocate, exactly.
Okay, got you. Continuing on, then we break away and we see Alex Murphy for the first time. Apparently something's gone bad. He's called into the chief's office. He's banged up pretty good. There's these other two policemen in there. And we kind of get a rundown that there's a gun deal gone bad. And kind of foreshadowing a little bit that there is police involvement, even though nobody comes out and just direct accuses anybody of police involvement. But we know that's what it's leading to, because these weapons were in police lockup. How else did they get on the street? And we kind of see one man behind all of that, or what would seem and set up like a main villain of the film, and that is what was his name? I can't remember. It'll hit me in just a minute. Sheesh. Anyway, this Antoine Vallon, is that
Antoine Vallon?
Antoine, thank you. Played by Patrick Garrow, of course. So yeah, this major setup, and you think this Antoine Vallon's going to be like the biggest bad guy in the film, as the gun runner or whatever. What did you think of this setup, this story setup that we're seeing that there's potential corrupt cops going on, corrupt police force, and they're in with these gun runners that are selling these guns on the streets?
I do like the whole fact that it was kind of like a facade, trying to get you to follow this part in the beginning, although I feel like they touched on it very, very shortly, and there wasn't enough emphasis on that part of the movie. It was a very short movie, so I understand them having to fit a lot into the movie, but at the same time, I feel like a lot of it suffered because there wasn't a lot of, they didn't touch enough on the whole gun situation. They gave a little bit about it. They gave a little bit about the whole underground shipping ring and all that, but they didn't really talk a lot about it, enough about it, in my opinion.
Right. But regardless, Alex Murphy goes home. They find out his partner Lewis, which was a female in the original 1980s version, is a male black man in this version. Really no complaints there. He did his role. I think there wasn't enough Murphy, because in the original 80s films, this is one of the gripes I did have. In the original 80s films, Lewis's character was central into bringing Murphy from back to humanity, back from you're not a machine, you're a human being underneath all this. If you take away all the robotic parts, you're a human being. And but anyway, this guy is in the hospital, so because he was injured in trying to uncover this this gun ring, these gun runners. And so Murphy's home. He's going to check on his family, and he walks outside. Car explosion, Yeah, I think one of the parts I liked about this right here is even though we don't have Lewis being what brings Murphy back to reality, the interaction with his son, talking about the Red Wings game, his wife, the interactions there. I think this was well done, and I think it sets up for what eventually does become his lifeline back to humanity, a whole lot better than the original Lewis concept from the original film.
I agree with you on that. I think that that was well done. Especially kind of the tone of talking about like the baseball games and showing him like watching his son watch some of the baseball games,
Hockey,
hockey games, the Red Wings, and I remember him. I was actually really, I liked the interaction between him and his wife a lot. I felt like the actress who played his wife was amazing. She did an amazing job through the entire movie. She really sold her character and really gave you a sense that he was fighting with himself for something very important.
right? And in the meantime, we see Michael Keaton's character trying to come up with a new product to sell to the American people. And so he's looking, he wants to put a man, he's already decided he wants to put a man in the machine. And they're going through these different candidates, all that they are turning down because they don't fit the psych profile, or they don't fit the physical requirements, or whatnot, whatever. Usually it's the psych profile, because I don't think there's much physical requirement to be RoboCop, as we'll find out later on. But yeah, what did you think of this? The way that this is shaping up.
I was kind of indifferent on it. I guess the setup was okay. I liked the sense of humor that they kind of threw in here and there, which was, excuse me, an offset from the original. But overall, it was pretty alright, I guess.
Okay. Which brings us back to Murphy, because his wife is. We find out Murphy's probably the perfect candidate, and his wife is presented with a difficult choice to make: either lose her husband, or you take a second chance, let these guys hook him up. He'll be physically and mentally alive per se, even though he won't be much of a man, but more of a machine. Is what is presented to her, and she okays it. And then we wake up and we're in China, and we find out now in the original series, it was really important that RoboCop woke up without his memories. In this film, oh my God, RoboCop woke up and knew exactly what had happened. And it was a what the freak just happened to me moment. What the hell is going on? What is this? You know, one of those, you know, what have you done? Frankenstein moments where you just, the monster loses his shit, pretty much. What do you think about the difference between that and the original RoboCop film? You know, you have the wipe, and here you have Gary Oldman playing Dr. Dennis Norton, trying to, you know.
I think that was one of my actually main gripes with the film, was that it was originally presented in the original as an action film, and with the way that they spun it, it made it more of a drama, which is, I guess, fine. It's just when you take a movie and you're remaking a movie, you kind of, even though you're going to take your own, the director's going to take their own take on it, you expect it to kind of be at least the same genre of movie. So when they went into it with that idea and kind of made it more of like a battle of self, more than it was kind of like an identity crisis, it gave it less of an action feel and more of a drama feel. And for me, that really hurt the movie.
Well, isn't that what the normal RoboCop was? It was still a battle of self. They just added, and it's pretty much still the same film as it was back in the 80s. They just added this, instead of like, it's a half-hour difference. Instead of seeing 30 minutes of RoboCop kicking ass, we saw 30 minutes of RoboCop trying to identify with what has happened to him and the humanity aspect to the character and more character development in the process. So really it's a 30-minute difference. We get 30 more minutes of Gary Oldman on screen versus 30 minutes of RoboCop actually kicking ass.
And I think it's probably where you and I differ, because I love the old action scenes, and I was really hoping to see like a really fresh take on the action, and we get only like one really good action scene out of it.
They do nod to the old RoboCop a ton in this movie. A lot of nods, like the Tin Man, I'll buy that for $1 reference. Just a bunch of references to the original RoboCop universe. So they're not denying that it ever existed. They were wanting to pay their homage to that and their respects to that. But I do like the better character development in this RoboCop, and I think there was still enough action. It's not 100% full throttle action like the 80s movies. There's still enough action to justify it being an action movie.
Right. I guess I do agree that there was at least some action to the movie.
Some action to the movie. Speaking of which, so RoboCop's running away. They shut him down. They bring him back. And they decide to put him in simulation versus the actual machines that are overseas, the actual military robots. And he's not doing as well as the machines because he's hesitant, because he's human. And so Michael Keaton's frustrated. He tells Gary Oldman's character to fix it, and they try to do an implant into his brain to where the machine kind of takes over and makes Murphy think that he's the one doing all of it. Kind of a little underhanded sneakery by the good old Dr. Denton Norton there.
Yeah.
But moving on, we bring RoboCop finally gets, a big action scene where he's killing a bunch of the military robots in this sparring-like environment, and taking down the tactician who really does not like Alex Murphy at all. But he takes on the Rick Maddox character and pretty much, humiliates the guy, which I thought was kick-ass.
Yeah.
And then we got to bring him home to the States. And there's a scene where he goes sees his family when he first gets back, which is kind of on the first thing on his mind. And keep in mind, the only thing that's left of Alex Murphy is one of his hands, his head, brain, spinal cord, lungs, and heart. And that's it, pretty much.
Right.
So he is pretty much like 95% machine. And he sees his son and his wife for the first time, and it's kind of a bittersweet moment because they're scared. They're kind of terrified of what he is, but they know deep down he is who he is. Even though he may not look the same, he may not ever be the same. I think there's a lot of that going on. What do you think?
I did like this scene. I liked the whole him asking about the Red Wings game and telling me he taped all of them. It was kind of interesting to see this part of the movie, and it was well played overall. It was a little short. I felt like they could have added a little bit more interaction with his wife, but overall it was still good.
Right. Speaking of Joel Kinnaman as Alex Murphy, I don't know that I want to see him in any more films, but he does RoboCop okay.
I don't know.
I mean, he doesn't have the best line delivery.
Exactly. That was my main gripe, was that it was just his line delivery is pretty mediocre, honestly.
But it's RoboCop. Does he really have to be?
But see, the part that really threw me is that when he's recollecting his memories and he's supposed to have like these emotions, he's just so dull. And then
RoboCop's supposed to be dull. He's a machine.
No, but I'm talking about when he's before the dopamine levels are lowered. After the dopamine levels are lowered and he's like starting to have like these more intense moments in the movie, that's when his actual acting chops come in, and that's ridiculous. He should have been doing that in the beginning, right. He's a human.
Right. Oh, no, I agree with you there. But, okay, let's skip ahead. Speaking of the dopamine levels, so they're going to present him to the world, okay? And you got to remember, it's 2028, and they're going to put every police file on record and download it to his brain just before this. I don't know why. This part bugs me a little bit. Why they decide to do this major download before the actual public reveal of RoboCop. Right before. Now, I'm not talking about like weeks before. No, I'm talking about right before they reveal RoboCop. They're going to do this massive upgrade to his brain. Yeah, 10 minutes before. And, of course, what happens when it gets closer to the present-day crime and it hits his crime? He goes into a seizure. I mean, he has an anxiety attack. RoboCop has a panic attack. This part was pretty dumb, but you know what I'm saying? But like you said, they brought the dopamine levels down to make him feel nothing. Pretty much, he's hardened, and he's pretty much thinking and acting like a robot now. Comes out onto the stage. Instead of coming out onto the stage to do a meet and greet, it's more of a, okay, I'm coming out on the stage and I'm profiling everybody, even the people who brought me here in the first place. I find a murderer out in the middle of the crowd. I jump out. I attacked him. He's under arrest. RoboCop hero. We cut back to Novak, who's like, it took, 6 years after this man committed his crime, and our police officers standing 2 feet away can't even identify the man, bring him in. 30 seconds with RoboCop. Guy's back. I mean, it's a no-brainer where this is going. Of course, RoboCop's instant hero. Crime goes down 80%. There's a big montage here. What do you think about this, Hirsch?
Yeah, I mean, I liked, the entire scene was pretty, I don't know, like that part that you were talking about originally was mediocre. I mean, there was no reason for it. The only reason they put it in there was to instigate the situation in the first place, and I feel like they could have found a better way to do that, and it was just dumb. It wasn't well done. Novak himself, again, I really like the character. I feel like they did it well. They could have had more of him, but he still was, it was short and sweet, and it did what it was supposed to do, to give you that whole identity of a Republican news reporter who was a little jaded in his views.
What do you think about the Murphy that goes and hits the streets now in this big long montage? It's kind of an action sequence for you, but it's like a...
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, that was okay. It wasn't... that was somewhat of an action sequence. I'm going to say that a lot in this. Yeah, no, that was actually all right. I kind of liked... It gave me... Like you were saying, there was a lot of nods. I feel like a lot of that whole action sequence was kind of a nod to the original film itself too. Some of the only parts that came in for like him getting like robbers off the streets and things like that,
I like what he does when he walks up. He locates a criminal that's in the database, and to get to that criminal, he needs to go to one of the underlings. So he goes to the underling. He tasers him, or he incapacitates him. He hasn't tasered him yet. And he walks up to him. He says, "You've got two choices. One, I taser you, and you risk the..." And he tells all the risks of being tasered. How many volts are going through his body, the chances of being burned, him losing control of his bowels and urine and all this, and then I arrest you. Or two, you tell me where your boss is, and I arrest you.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
I really like the way that was done. And then, of course, the huge action scene where he takes out the drug house. I thought that was pretty good. It says, hey, RoboCop's here. Crime's down 80%. But he hasn't been back home. He hasn't talked to the wife because he's still thinking like a machine. They've not fixed this. And Gary Oldman's character kind of approaches Michael Keaton's character. The corporate of Oscorp and the doctor here are kind of talking. And Michael Keaton's character says, keep Murphy away from his wife, or keep her away from Murphy. And we know that that's not going to work out. So eventually what happens is she meets him in the street, and Murphy tries to just ignore it and put it out of the way, but then he starts accessing files on his son, and his brain is self-repairing. And there's an emotional state, and he starts investigating the crime of his own murder. He's investigating pretty much his own murder. And this is very climatic because we find out it starts climaxing it up and up and further as the investigation is going out. And he finally does take out Valen, which is the gun runner, and finds out that he takes down the two corrupted cops that we saw in the movie previously. And then he's getting ready to take down Karen Dean, which is the chief of police. But he's stopped by the Omnicorp. I mean, she's later indicted, but he's essentially stopped. He's shut down. They pull the plug. What do you think of all this transpiring here?
It was it went a little too quickly for me. I felt like they didn't give it's pacing issues pretty much, just issues of pacing, where they had this kind of somewhat build up to the situation, and they made it kind of seem like a big deal, and then it was just over in like 5 minutes, with him catching all of the people who pretty much caused his death, which I know it's not the main. What they tried to put forth was that it wasn't the main actual enemy, but at the same time, I still felt there could have been more to it, and the pacing could have been better. Absolutely.
No, I agree. The pacing is a little bit quicker here. Whereas the beginning of the movie kind of dragged out a little bit. Now we're having to play catch up because we're running out of time to tell our story. And I do believe that. I'm not saying that this is the most perfect RoboCop ever, but this is a fun RoboCop. Even though the pacing's kind of off, I'm having fun seeing him kicking ass and taking names and telling Lewis, hey, you might want to join me for this. And they go into the conference room, and he shoots. He knows right away that the one guy is getting ready to initiate something, so he shoots him right away. And then he sees that the other guy is cooperative, and he gives him a chance to give up what information he has, and then he shoots him anyway. I thought it was fantastic. I love the pacing of this kick-ass Murphy brain kicking in and going out for the vengeance. Totally enjoyed this part of the film, even though you're right, it doesn't match up with the pacing of the rest of the film.
Yeah. In fact, I feel like the pacing probably was well done. It was probably the rest of the film that was previously that was off.
Right. But then we hit another slowdown, kind of a not a complete slowdown like the beginning of the film, but it does kind of dial it back just a little bit, and let's focus back on our main storyline a little bit. The wife, what do we tell her? And you know they're gonna bring her in and explain things to her, kind of like. What is it? I'll deal with the wife. I'll take care of her. I'll explain her. They're going to make it look like he's dead because what's happened is the the Dreyfus Act is being reversed in the Senate. They're actually going to put machines on. They're getting the go-ahead to start putting machines on police force units and things like this. And they're essentially going to try to kill Murphy. Of course, Gary Oldman stops this from happening, releases him. RoboCop goes to Omnicorp and basically infiltrates it. There's this big scene where he finally takes out the tactician with Lewis's help because they're wearing these red bands. I don't know. Like, Murphy can't shoot anything that is Omnicorp property, so...
Yeah, there's another problem, is that they didn't really... They introduced it at one point, but they barely touched on it, didn't give it much of a thing, and yet it's a main, like, integral part of him not being able to take these people out.
Right.
And they barely touched on it.
Right. But anyway... Finally, we get up to Michael Keaton's character. He's getting ready to leave on Chopper. They're still trying to protect their story, saying that Alex Murphy's gone rogue. The man inside is dead. It's just a machine, and it's going haywire. It's a malfunction. They're trying to protect their story. This is what they're telling the wife and all this. And finally, Alex Murphy gets up there. He's lost an arm. He's pretty much crap, but is able to overcome this thing that's whatever system's in place, fail-safe system that keeps him from harming anybody that's associated with Omnicorp. He overpowers that and ends up shooting the CEO anyway. And then we do the scene where we see them rebuilding Hershey, or sorry, I said Hershey, but I'm reading your nameplate. They do where they're rebuilding Murphy. We find out that Dreyfus Act is still in place. There's still not going to be any machine cops on the streets of Detroit or anywhere else in the country. And it kind of plays down, and Novak is pissed, and the movie goes off, pretty much. So it's over as quickly as, I wouldn't say as quickly as it began, but it ends pretty abruptly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's basically the entire movie. It's a very short movie.
Yep. Very, very short.
Your final thoughts on the way it closed and everything?
It was abrupt. The pacing was bad. I can say it over again. It was, I don't know, it's just, I liked the final scene where, like, that part where he was able to finally shoot him. It did feel like it was a little lackluster. Like, I could have had a little bit more from it, although considering everything else that the movie's given me, I was okay with that, with the way it ended. But then the actual ending was just like, all right, everything's done. Click, done. And it was just kind of, I don't know.
Right, and it didn't show a reunion with his family or anything like that, an emotional moment. At the end, it didn't show anything like that. It's just, RoboCop's still around. He's still going to kick ass. He's still going to take names.
Especially with how little actual action the movie had, they should have at least stuck with the whole drama thing and been like, his family's great and everything's good. But no, they had to go and be like, hey, remember all those action scenes that you didn't actually get in this movie? Yeah, he's going to be doing more of that without you being able to watch it.
I thought the movie was, like I said, I found it's not the most perfect storytelling ever, But for RoboCop, I felt like the movie was fun. It was okay. And it did pay homage to the original RoboCop. The original RoboCop it did end abruptly too. But the original RoboCop was full throttle action through the entire film.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a love-hate relationship. It's the same story. Of course, you know, we blew up Alex Murphy instead of gunning him down in half because it's PG-13. But that's another gripe I had. If I had to gripe about the movie, is the fact that it was PG-13 and they wanted to keep it PG-13 instead of the rated R film of the 80s. But other than that, man, I think I had fun with it. It's not the best film ever. It is short, but I felt like, I could watch it again. It's not that bad. It's not the crap fest I thought it was going to be. I can't hate on it for being untrue to the original film because it kind of was true to the original film. They just added, took away 30 minutes of action and added 30 minutes of drama with Gary Oldman. I mean, and who doesn't want to see Gary Oldman on film? Gary Oldman was awesome in this movie.
Yeah, I do love Gary Oldman. He was did a very good job in this movie. I just would have liked to see an action movie and not a drama.
And so your final thoughts? Really nothing more to say, but go ahead.
2 broken robots out of 5.
2 broken robots out of 5. I'm going to give it 3 broken robots out of 5. How about that?
All right.
It's an average movie. It's not like the best movie ever.
Yeah.
It's not one that I probably would have went to the box office to see. It probably is a rent. It's on Netflix. That's where we pull most of our movies to watch. I thought it was a good time. It's definitely worth watching, especially if you're a RoboCop fan.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say if you're a RoboCop fan and you also like drama movies, you'll love it.
All right, that's going to do it for us. Until next week, me and Hershey don't know really what movie we're going to do next week. We're going to have to talk to it here in just a moment, but we will keep you guys posted. Again, don't forget to visit intrepidgurus.com. There you can find a list of all sorts of talented streamers like Hershey1103 here himself. He does his own thing on Twitch. As part of our group, along with Nemesis Joe, Tech Gladiator, Spiral JK, Slim and M, Leisure the Great. I mean, there's just all these great streamers over there. Head over to intrepidgurus.com. You'll see some of their highlights. There's podcasts that we do. There's more movie reviews like this. There's video game reviews. All sorts of content over there. Just go check it out. Until next time, catch you on the flip side.